Yes, it's probably my solemn duty to talk about this. I was prepared to give the anecdote at the funeral, but apparently it was a private cremation, which is understandable. Yeah, quite a good one, this one. A lot of information. Yeah, I think we all saw the sulphitic mud in the pond. Basically nothing else in it but some sulphitic mud, and it's quite understandable, you know. There's no way you're going to be lifting a wheelchair out of a pond like that when your feet are sinking down in the sulphur. There's no way you're going to be lifting a person out of a wheelchair, because as you try to lift them up out of the chair, your feet are going to sink down in the sulphitic mud. Perhaps, she was strapped in, and maybe, the way these old folks' homes work, maybe they changed the sort of the seatbelt coupling had been changed or something, and he didn't know or something. The usual thing. You take them out for a trip out, something. You arrive at the old folks' home. She's already strapped in, and maybe it was a different strapping. And in the darkness of the water, you couldn't. He hadn't realised. Two, you just, you weren't familiar with the new coupling or something, and you just couldn't work it out in time to say. Well, I don't know. As I said, the police mentioned there was one and only a single item. We all saw the photographs. There was nothing else in that pond apart from that sulphitic mud. No branches, no nothing else. Just that sulphitic mud, as far as we could see from those photographs when they drained it. I'm thinking it's either a ring, a brooch, or part of a broken off brake system, I would think. So, yes. I was thinking, first of all, of maybe she dropped a ring or dropped a brooch or something particular to the reason or the day she was at the pond, which I'll talk about my anecdote shortly, and went to try and retrieve it, stumbled and it went in. But more likely it's probably a shattered brake system or something, because the way they do these things. Most people who are not used to these systems on the wheelchair, give it a bit of a kick to find out how it works, and I'm sure they do all these robotic tests or something where they run something for 50 million hours or something, and of course that just gives the same thing. That's sort of not calibrated to different sizes of people, and also people when they first come across a new wheelchair, and these things 5, 10 and 15 years can easily slip by on a wheelchair, not really realising, but probably you need to have a new wheelchair or something like that, and fatigue sets in on the metal, and people kicking them around, thinking, not quite knowing how to use them properly, or getting used to them. Every time that first or one or two kicks when they first get used to it, it probably all accumulates to metal fatigue over time. Probably not tested for at the factory, because they just probably set up one of these robotic machines that just runs something for about 50 million hours or something, the same sort of force and everything, not realising you have big muscular nurses, you've got little small people, and kicking these things from different angles and different heights and things like that. So as I said, cut this bloke some slack. The angle from the guns, well, they were setting up some sort of hobby farm together. Maybe the guns were left over from the pre-King John Howard years in the Port Arthur massacre, and at the time it just got away from the person. It accumulated, and it got to the stage where this thing had gone by. All the King John Howard years had gone by, and the Port Arthur thing, and he was trapped in the melee of all the stuff to do with what happened initially back in those years. So cut the bloke some slack, as I say. You know, that's probably what the gun angle was all about. Ex-farming property, probably had to downsize and all that sort of stuff, you know. Okay. Yeah, the sun is still pretty intense out here. Whoa. Okay, my anecdote. Back in 1990, I worked under Helen Dancy. She was my boss for about 6 months. So I went from the days from the summer all the way through to probably autumn into winter sometime, because I remember talking about the pool, the fact it was a heated pool. Anyway, one day I came in after lunch, and there was no one else in the lab, and she used to have this hair up in a bun sort of thing, and it looked like it'd been put back sort of suddenly, and it was sort of wet, I thought. So I asked her what had happened, sort of thing. And of course, she used to have this hair in particular. I used to notice that she almost went through. She used to dye her hair, and it almost like she used to go through not just blonde and all that sort of stuff. She used to go through almost every shade of blonde. You know, like she'd buy a new packet each week, and so you get blonde one week, and then you get sort of a different shade of blonde. You get platinum blonde, you get yellow blonde the next week, and then you get like strawberry blonde the next week, and sort of gradually moving around. I don't know, but I don't know. I noticed these sort of things. Mine eyes see all sort of thing. Anyway, so I noticed the hair was sort of a bit of Kimball sort of thing, and been hastily put up or sort of thing, and it was damp sort of thing. And she mentioned that she'd had and of course, I started to wonder why no one else was in the lab, and she'd given them an extended lunch sort of thing. Apparently, I think her husband rung up suddenly, I think, and said, he was turning up with their son, and they spent the lunchtime in the pool there at the Repat Hospital. And of course, that drew the fact that it was a heated pool. She did mention it was a heated pool, so that must have mean it was like going in from autumn into winter. Again, maybe this is why this thing happened at this pool at that sort of time. Brings back memories. You want to go, brings back reminiscences. Anyway, long story short, she basically come back from this hour or so in the pool. I don't know if he turned up with a cosy, or I vaguely remember she just swam in her bra knickers. I can't remember now. It's so long ago. And she said, basically, she said it was the best day of her life. And of course, the way I was back then, I sort of said, well, how do you know? It could be next week or in 40 years' time, sort of thing. And thinking, saying 40 years' time, it's like 30 years now on, almost. And thinking, and so she hastens to sort of, hastens to sort of cut me off halfway with that sort of argument and saying, she sort of, gave in and sort of said it's the best day of her life up to now, sort of thing. Yeah. So swimming with her son in that pool at the Repat Hospital in, as I said, the probably the autumn days going into winter. I can't remember exactly when it was. But then we had another moment sometime later where she mentioned that weekend they just bought a tractor, and her favourite joke was that sort of joke about pulling a needle out of the Roseanne Barr joke sort of thing. And before, I think it was before I knew it was a Roseanne Barr joke, I think, and I never heard it before, and it sort of And there was another moment when her husband had turned up in the lab. Of course, this all makes sense now in hindsight. And I must have done this sort of double take, because the way she sort of used to, she was very, very sculptured sort of looking woman, the hair in the bun and everything else, and immaculate sort of thing. And I must have done a double take or something, because the other people in the lab, Adrian Blue and a few others, they all sort of like hastened to add that he had a wicked sense. She loved his wicked sense of humour or something. So he's definitely going to need that now, I reckon. But if you have any trouble, just turn up to me. I'll fix you up. Rain or shine, day or night, you can turn up and have a chat with me, and I'm always willing to listen. So, But yeah, so I must have, as I said, I did this double take. They said she married him for his wicked sense of humour or something like that. They quickly hastened to add because they must have seen I'd done this like double take sort of thing. Yeah, and as I said, the joke with the tractor, I can see it now. I can see it. You know, that must have been like his wicked sense of humour. It was like the Roseanne Barr joke before everyone knew it was a Roseanne Barr joke. You know, pulling a needle out with a tractor sort of thing. That was her joke of I think that 6 months or that year, because she just, as I said, they just bought. I had this anecdote, other anecdote about that. She told me that at that weekend they just bought a tractor. They were going to set up a hobby farm to grow grapevines or something. And then I talked about, you know, how do you? In fact, that was in the days before they pre-crushed them outside the. You know, you could have a hobby farm, but you get your grapes crushed at another location, sort of thing. Yeah, so we had that sort of like discussion, but. Long story short, that's probably why she liked water and going to lakes, because, as she said, from her thing, that was the best day of her life, as she said to me. There you go. That's probably why it occurred there, and probably why it occurred at that sort of time. It brought back memories of the best day of her life, swimming with her. It was 7-year-old son then. Apparently, that's what she told me. He was 7 then. I don't think she ever mentioned him by name. It was just, I can't remember now, or I didn't understand, you know, the name. I thought she was talking about something else. But anyway, there's my anecdote for you. I hope it helps. Hope it set things in perspective. Okay, over and out. See ya.